It was qualifying day here at the Roar before the 24 Hours of Daytona. And some of these boys forgot it was just a qualifying race, and we ended up getting a surprise Pikachu Wayne Taylor face. But a very important day as we set the grid for the Rolex 24. We've got some driver interviews and a lot of things to talk about. Let's get into it. So welcome back to the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. What an exciting day here. This is the second year that the Roar before the 24 has really been a points-paying qualifying race. And certainly this has been the most exciting of the two. We got to talk about that finish. DPI. Haven't actually spoken a whole lot about DPI this weekend. It's really been such an intense focus on the GT battle and both on and off the track. But the number 10 Konica Minolta Wayne Taylor Racing Acura was almost passed by the number 5 JDC Miller Motorsports Cadillac. That car has been so fast, and it was very reminiscent of a move that Ricky Taylor put on Felipe Albuquerque towards the end of the 2017 race. And the ironic part about it all is that Felipe Albuquerque and Ricky Taylor are now teammates in that Wayne Taylor Racing Acura, and it was the 5 car that came out once again on the losing end of this battle. So certainly, we finally got our first look at what the 61 car field would look like coming down for the green, taking the green flag, running in traffic. I was actually surprised and impressed that IMSA allowed all of the GT cars to maintain their initial and original starting positions, whether they're Pro or AM class. A lot of times if a prototype, for example, goes slower than a GT car, it will still start ahead of the GT cars in the starting grid. That was not the case, at least for the GT field, and I thought it was a much stronger race because of it. It's fun to see that inter-class battle, and we've seen quite a bit of that already, and I think for 24 hours here, next Saturday to Sunday, it's going to be exactly that. So let's go over exactly who were our class winners today. And of course, I already talked about the finish, the Wayne Taylor number 10 Cadillac, or sorry, not Cadillac, Acura. I did it. I did the thing. Konica Minolta Acura ARX 05 taking the overall victory and will start from the pole position of the Rolex 24. The 5 car did come in second. It was no harm, no foul on the spin. Pierre-Juan Mathiasen Motorsports, the wins car, was first in class in LMP2. That means that Ben Keating will start second in DPI and first in LMP2. And actually, we got an interview with him. We'll talk to him later on. 36 car won in LMP3. Andretti Autosport starting from the pole position with their Ligier in LMP3. Certainly, a lot of my viewers will be happy with that result. The number 63 TR3 Lamborghini winning the class in GTD Pro. They were the fastest overall GTD car as well. Certainly, when you got essentially a Lamborghini factory effort with Lamborghini factory drivers, they've got a lot of SRO and GT racing experience, particularly multi-class GT3 racing with everybody running GT3 cars. So really no surprise, but certainly the Mercedes and the Porsches have proven to be very, very quick as well. I think it's going to be, at least based on what we have seen so far, a battle between Lamborghini, Porsche, and Mercedes. And speaking of Mercedes, it was Windward Racing taking the victory and the pole position for next week's Rolex in GTD AM. So, like I promised, we finally actually got some driver interviews lined up today. So first, we're going to throw it over to my interview with second overall, first in LMP2 today, Ben Keating. And of course, he's running 2 cars, 2 prototypes, 2 unique prototypes. And he brings a unique perspective to his Rolex 24. Take a listen.
You know, it's fun for me to be in 2 different cars just because I feel like I double my chances. However, having said that, in both cases, we have incredibly strong cars. I think, you know, in both cars, we would have to be one of the favorites to win. And that's, that's also really exciting. What makes this year different special is that it's the first time I've ever run in DPI. It's the first time I've ever had the opportunity to run for an overall win. And that's just crazy to think about. That's something that's really special to think about. Having the opportunity to be on the overall podium or an overall win is definitely something that's a level above.
Now, obviously, LMP2 and DPI, they're the same base rule set, but what is the difference as a driver, and do you have to change your driving style to jump in the Cadillac versus the Oreca?
Yes, for sure. I drove the car for the first time on Friday afternoon. We did no testing. We weren't able to do any testing before being here, so I jumped in the car on Friday afternoon. I did about 3 laps, and they called me into the pits and told me everything I was doing wrong because I was driving it like an LMP2 car. I expected them to be very similar, and they're quite different, which is a lot of fun for me. I expected it to be just the same kind of stuff. And my lap times between the two cars are somewhat similar because I'm driving them the same way. I expect that once I get into the race, you get into a rhythm. I'll be quicker in the DPI car just because you got more power, and I'll learn how to extract the speed and the lap time out of that car, but they are quite different, and it's a lot of fun. I believe that running in the DPI car and understanding how to get the speed out of that car is making me a little better in the LMP2, and vice versa. So, yes, it's difficult to switch between the two, but there's also something to be gained from learning how to extract the speed out of the different cars.
So obviously one of the big discussion points as well, we've been harping on it, has been the GT battle, particularly in GTD AM. 2 drivers got to talk to you today, and 2 drivers you're probably familiar with if you're an open-wheel racing fan. And one of the big things about the Rolex 24 in particular is you've got a lot of IndyCar, Indy Lights, Formula One drivers in some cases coming over here and pitch hitting. Well, at least one of these drivers is full-time in IMSA this year, and one of them is full-time in the IMSA Endurance Cup. We talked to Stefan Wilson and Robert Megennis, yes, Chicken Tendies himself, about the challenges of adapting to a GT car and also how to handle the traffic.
It is actually, it's been quite a big transition. A lot of learning to be done on how to extract the lap time out of these cars. These are absolutely incredible cars. These are not, they might look like a street sport car, but they are far from it. They are some badass machinery. Lots of downforce, so that's what I'm used to, but steel brakes. So that's been quite an adjustment in trying to go back to learning how to drive a car with steel brakes again. The carbon ceramic, the way it slows the car down is just a little bit different than steel. So we haven't had too much laps around here, but every lap we're just learning more. I'm learning more and developing, and I can't thank the Hardpoint team enough for making that transition as easy as possible for me.
It's I think it's actually drives similarly to a Formula car, right? It's got 4 wheels, it's got a steering wheel. This car makes a decent amount of aero. It's got a bunch of power, so it's not too different from an Indy Lights car. It's a lot of the same principles. You still have to, hit the brakes in the same way. You still have to get on the throttle, make sure you're not sliding around. So a lot of the same things are there. It's just been nitpicking little things like how you get the car in on the ABS and stuff that's been different. But, you learn that with time, and I'm still getting up to speed and still figuring that out. But I think driving last year, the Endurance Cup, I think that was a big help as well. Just to, get this IMSA Endurance GT deal, in my head and kind of figure out what it's all about.
This year it's going to be an interesting dynamic. As you've touched on it, there's 35 GT3 cars out there. That's definitely a change from last year when you had the GTLM machinery out there. There was a bit of a separation, more of a separation than there is right now. So it would break up that GT sort of category, so that when the DPs and the other prototypes come through, they're a little bit more staggered. Now you've just got this swarm of 35 GT cars, and as we were just talking about, the competition level, we might be the lowest category that's racing in the 24 in terms of on the timesheets, but the competition level in the GT category is just insane. These guys are world-class drivers. A lot of them could easily be IndyCar drivers with certain different takes in their career, but that means that it's awesome. Like I'm racing against some of the very best, and I'm measuring myself against some of the very best. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic on that we're going to see, where those DPI cars, the prototypes, are going to have to navigate this huge swarm of GT cars, and we'll see how that plays into the 24. Should make it exciting.
No, I mean, there's just so many GT cars out there, but it's fun. It's fun, right? There are fewer cars going by us now, right? Because the LMs would pass us, every 15 whatever laps. So now it's like, I feel like when you're out there, it doesn't matter who's in front of you, you're going after them, right? If it's a pro car, you're going to pass the pro car. If it's another GTD car, then it's like, great, I'm going to make up a position here. But I think it's really made the field so deep and so competitive, and you really have to work so hard to be up at the front that I love it. I love it. And being able to compare ourselves to some of the best GT drivers in the world, some of the best GT lineups in the world, that's super cool. And I think we have a lineup here, and I think we have a car here that we can beat a bunch of those guys with. So that's inspiring, right?
And finally, an interview that I was not expecting to get today, and certainly not someone I was really at all prepared or expecting to talk to. And it's Mirko Jensen. I hope I said that right. I even told him we Americans have a terrible track record of pronouncing European names, so I'm sorry. Hopefully we'll talk again sometime. But he is the driver partner in the wins number 52 to Ben Keating. And his story is very unique. He started racing fairly late, at least in the traditional sense, 15 years old in karts, moved up to cars, and eventually got noticed by the Peugeot LMP1 team, or I guess LMH team now, and he will be driving that very unique vehicle that we've seen testing recently. He has not driven it yet, but he gives some unique perspective on a car that may well, with hypercar and LMDH convergence, be racing here next year.
Yeah, but I started in 17 with sports cars, LMP3. Did it for a couple of years, always tried to get into LMP2, but it's hard to prove yourself, not having any budget to bring. And 3 years it took in LMP3 to be able to race the first season in LMP2 in 2020 with G-Drive, which was one of the best teams and still is. And this was the door that opened then for future things. That's when Peugeot got interested in me. That's how I got to drive in PR1, I guess, because they've seen me in this season in 2020. So since then, there's just been loads of opportunities, and I would say the big start of my career really was in 2020, when much more opportunities started to rise.
So tell me a little bit about that Peugeot opportunity, because we're all so excited with that car. It's a very unique looking car. How did they approach you? How did they discover you?
I think they discovered me in Le Mans in 2020, which was my first time ever, first time in the P2 around there, first season in P2 and first time in Le Mans at all. So yeah, I think I did quite a good job there for being the rookie and matching my pro teammates, and this just showed them something which was interesting. And we started talking after that, and they tried to settle their drivers very early in this program, because we know with LMDH and hypercar coming, much more manufacturers are coming, and I think Peugeot had the approach that they wanted to be first out and try to secure the drivers they wanted. Otherwise, they would be too late, there would be too much competition. So that's how we got to work together, and now it's actually been more than a year since we started working together, but it's only been simulator until now, and then next month, finally in February, I get to drive the car.
Wow, so you haven't driven the car yet. I know it's been testing, but what are you kind of anticipating? Because it is a unique car. There's I guess there is a rear wing on it now, but it's a little tiny little thing. It's a different concept, and are you expecting it to be much different than your LMP2 experience, or will it handle very similarly to what you're used to?
Well, I only know what I know from the sim, and what you see. I've done a bit of WEC races in the GT, so you have a view always on on the Toyota hypercars, which is the car I'm watching out for to see if I can learn some stuff and see and predict what our car is going to feel like. Because the hypercars are a bit more heavy, so we will have slower corner speeds, at least in the slow corners where we don't have so much downforce. So it's going to be more difficult than a P2, I guess. But we do have the four-wheel drive above 120 kph, so it also does help the traction in long corners, getting on power. So it's a bit of a mix. I don't know how exactly it's going to feel like, so I'm super excited for my first test next month.
And so that's it. That's my coverage of the Roar before the 24. Of course, there'll be coverage all through the week of the lead up to the Rolex 24 and, of course, the Rolex 24 itself. More driver interviews. We're getting Kyle in on Wednesday, so we're going to have some extra firepower at the camera position, and it'll allow me to do a little bit more digging in the paddock and hopefully have even more scoops and information for you. Now they're yelling at us that they're going to close things down. That probably means that I should also close things down. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Shout out to all the great Patreon supporters. You're about to see their names with some cool footage, and we'll see you in the next video.